Okay, I have a series whose name I always forget. But it's Tonari no Yokai-san.
Yes.
An alternative title, there doesn't really seem to be one. At least listed on Mall.
Yeah.
Is this the one with the freaky Tengu?
You mean Freaky Tengu? He's just a Tengu guy. You're talking about the Crow Tengu.
The crow Tengu that looks like he's not made of feathers but fur?
Yeah.
Uh,
This is
But yeah,
that one.
this is you can also kind of just transliterate as essentially the monster next door, right? Essentially. But
Oh, okay.
yeah.
But yeah,
This
so
is this an anime original?
This
Or what?
is a web manga original.
Oh, okay.
Yes, this is a web manga original. This is being done by Leiden Films. You may know them from series such as Goblin Slayer.
Are you?
I forgot that
Tokyo
Leiden did do Goblin Slayer.
Revengers.
God,
Wow.
Tokyo Revenge is fucking.
Who did Goblin Slayer season 2? Because remember, season 2 looked different.
Leiden Films.
Oh, okay.
Oh, who did
Wait,
season 1?
they
then?
also did
they not do
Yokashi no
season
Uta?
1?
Wasn't it White Fox that did season 1?
Oh, you're right. It was White Fox that did
Maybe.
season 1.
Yeah.
You're correct.
Damn,
They
so I have
also
to blame.
did Call of the Night.
I have to blame Leiden Films for making. For what is it?
Oh, I didn't realize. Yeah, I didn't even realize. Leiden Films
Beautifying a
was
Goblin
called
Slayer.
that.
Yeah.
Okay. But
Oh,
yeah.
killing bites. Oh, classic.
Well, Killing
Yes,
Bites
Killing
had terrible
Bites.
source material. Yeah, to be fair, Killing Bites just had like awful source
Yeah, I
material.
mean, it
so
was
you
just
can't
dog
really-
shit. Like, it was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
straight up dog shit. So.
Like, if you try to adapt dog shit, it's gonna be dog shit, regardless of how high the quality animation wise is.
No.
Man,
Nuh-uh.
there's such a divide in Leiden Films. I see like what is it? The Rise of anime looked fantastic in there. Let's see. Yushigashinda Kenshin's up there, but then
Yeah.
Goblin Slayer season 2 didn't look that great.
Yeah, they just ran out of money or funding rather.
Yeah, but
probably.
like Goblin Slayer season 1 didn't look that great either.
That was the point, though. It's not
What?
supposed to look.
What?
Not supposed to look great.
Goblin Slayer.
What are you
Goblin
talking
Slayer
about?
season
What are you
1
talking
looked
about?
really fucking budget, and was
Hell
also
yeah.
really fucked because it was
I'm-
like these
I'm
are just
saying-
the typical White Fox like fucking faces in
Liz-
Goblin
Liz-
Slayer.
yeah. Lizard Man and Dwarf Shaman, they're too cute looking. What's up with that?
Yeah. But
They
yeah,
don't look
so
rugged
this
manly
is-
anymore. But yeah.
This is Leiden Films. This is a web manga original. And this is I'll just probably do a summary myself, really. Actually no, this one's good. Takes place in a rural town where yokai, people and gods live normal everyday lives, mixed with a bit of warmth and occasional mystery. And so yeah, I'll just move on. Because fuck the rest of that. So basically this opens with the cat Buccio. He's a family cat of what was their last name? Yeah, actually I can't find it. Anyway, so Buccio, a family cat, winds up turning into a Nekomata. So he is a two-tailed like cat that can, do transformations, can speak, can walk upright, etc., etc. And now like essentially lives like for effectively forever. Will outlive like obviously his current family and whatnot. And this is a pretty episodic show because it also focuses on like a few different people that are all in this little rural village, like rural town. So they have like Buccio and his family. And then you have Mutsumi, Sugimoto, and Jiro. And Mutsumi is a girl who is like a kind of like a semi like tomboyish girl in the town, but she is becoming a shrine maiden. And she works closely with this Raven Tengu Jiro to like protect the town, and also like he does his duty as part of like the shrine, considering he is a mountain spirit more or less.
Can I ask something just real quick? Is this a children's show? What's going
This
on
is
here?
this is not a children's show, but its art
Okay.
style very much is like akin to one, which I think has been
Yeah,
like
okay.
pretty
Which is
cozy.
fine. Like I just wanted to
Um,
know if like the general idea of
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about that when I get to audio visuals. But yeah, so as far as the story goes, it is a very episodic story in that way. Like obviously there is a through line of like Buccio trying to figure out, kind of like what he wants to do now, like now that he is
Okay.
a Nekomata, and like what that means, and like, you know, what he can do now, and how he can like, help his family more and whatnot.
Is the
Um,
focus on that, or is it the focus on the village? Like,
So the focus is on that when it's up to Buccio, when it's on Buccio. Because like I
yeah.
said, it kind of like jumps around. So like some will be centered on Buccio and his family, some will be centered on Jiro, some will be centered on this like fox spirit girl, Yuri. Um,
Oh, so it's like a set of given perspectives, and not like journeying around the town and seeing what's up.
no, yeah, it's like that's what I'm saying. It's like very episodic in that way. Like some episodes will
Okay.
focus on like some and not others, and all the while it's giving like a lot of yokai like trivia. It's giving a lot of um It's giving a lot of world building. And I think that is one of the most interesting parts about this series is this series does a lot to do the world building concepts of how would everyday life go if there were just these like yokai walking around and these gods walking around and coming down.
That's actually a
You know
really
how
interesting way to set up the story, because I thought this series, from sort of the poster art and the premise, I thought what it would end up being it would be essentially like a Nyatsumi Yujincho Maju no Tabi Tabi kind of thing, but within a town. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But you're saying that there are like discrete like characters, like like casts, like groups of people that are created and like organically grown, and it's not just like episode. Oh, I met the lady at the shopping district and she was a monster. I met the next door neighbor and she was a monster. It's not like that. It's
Yeah,
like you
no,
would
it's
go.
it's very much not like jumping around like that. Like, oh, like here's this person. Like they obviously introduce them like in certain ways. Like Buccio, like they introduce the fox, the like fox lady because Buccio is like trying to learn transformation, and since she, is constantly transformed as a human and then can transform back into a fox, like, she essentially mentors him on that. And then they use that to like bleed in her backstory and whatnot. And yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff with that. I would say like the most like that you were describing winds up being the Kappa girl and like in the school Rain. Because like her thing is mostly just like she has a crush and they do a couple of like Kappa things where, she gets really flustered and like loses her water and has to get like taken to the nurse's office. And then they ask like Hanako like in the toilet, for love advice like in their school and everything like that. And it is a very like bubbly sort of what would you call it, like interpretation of all of these things.
So
Like they
the
go
tone
to
stays light. The tone stays light for the entire like episode, or what?
not really. Yes and no. This show has a lot of drama, I guess is the other thing to get into. Like there is a subplot of like, there's obviously the least dramatic, which is Buccio like trying to find his way as like
What's
a new
the?
yokai.
Sorry for like interrupting. But what's like the level of the drama? Is it like kind of like an interpersonal, kind of that sort of
Some
how
of it's
they kind
interpersonal,
of
like with Yuri, like minor spoiler alerts. Her drama is she left her family because they're fucking racist. Like they're literally like her backstory is like she left her family because like growing up like her family was like our bloodline is fucking pure and sick. And then she like insulted like inadvertently like insulted one of her friends who was only like half fox spirit and half human. So like, like that's kind of why like she hates her like traditional family. Though they're like obviously they're getting into like resolving that and whatnot. Um, Buccio's obviously is the least like dramatic in that way, in that sense, and is more of like a coming of age drama thing with that. Obviously, there's the love stuff with Rain. I would say the edgiest stuff is with or not even edgy. The most serious stuff is with the Jiro, the Raven yokai slash Tengu. Because his and Mutsumi's like story is, you know, obviously like protecting the town, the shrine stuff. So like, you know, Jiro has a lot of history with the town, living for hundreds of years, and protecting it from like, you know, giant god serpents and shit like that. But I would say like the craziest backstory is Mutsumi's backstory is like her father, like she lost her father, and like for the first little bit, you're kind of like, oh, okay, like he's dead. But then like her parents are like, you know, she brings back like her grandpa's spirit for a night. With I forget what it's called, but like a like horse yokai that you can make like an effigy of, and it's supposed to like bring back the spirit of like the deceased, for a night. And I thought that was, by the way, just as a tangent, but I thought that was done actually really cool because like they kind of, it's not like there are no stakes, like you can just like have your loved one come back. Like they bring him back and all they can do is like they can catch glimpses of him. And they can like kind of get like his voice at certain points, like speaking to them.
Oh, okay.
But it's like a very fleeting thing, you know, it's like you know, people can even like second guess themselves of if that's actually what happened, especially like Mutsumi, you know. But then they're like, oh yeah, you know, it would be like, it would make your father really sad if you thought of him as dead. And this is where like some of the world building comes in. And I think it's supposed to turn out to be like more of an analogy for sort of like climate change and whatnot. But her dad was taken by the void. And the
This is
void,
almost like Suzume, right? Like the Shinkai Makoto, the recent Shinkai Makoto film, right?
I guess so. It like the way they describe it is like yokai are from like an imaginary like dimension, like a realm essentially. And before they form into yokai, they're essentially these like weird shadow things. And the shadows like feed on sort of like negative emotions, and are like negative emotion sort of things themselves as well. And not everyone can see them, and you kind of can interact with it. But like people can essentially get dragged into it in like some freak accident, and no one really knows what happens because essentially they're just in a different dimension.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so that was definitely a very like odd thing, like place to go. But I don't really mind it. I think it's a decent, like cool world building. It ties back into like other characters every now and then. And there's even like a sort of again with how I think they like make it pretty interesting with this is they have like a small section about like their space program, like like space programs and how like space is functioning, and humans kind of know like way more about wormholes and everything because they're constantly interacting with like gods and yokai, which are just you know interdimensional beings. And yeah, so there's like even an isekai bit where they establish, you know, the regular world, like more or less like our world, what would be like with no yokai and whatnot, is a thing, and is out there.
Okay.
And
That's
so
cool.
yeah, like that was a pretty interesting like aspect, and the show seems to be doing a lot of that as like little supplemental bits, to sort of, you know, string along characters during the episode and like cause a little bit of like, you know, progression in them. So I think it kind of comes together pretty well. It's definitely a lot more interesting than I thought it would be.
I'm also curious as to is there any sort of this like foreshadowing of like ominous things that is going to happen, like cloud loom over the town or something that you know what I mean. It's like
Yeah,
all
there
these little-
was a weird interdimensional like black crack in the sky that a yokai fell out of at one point, and they're kind of just like, that's not
damn it.
good. That's not supposed to happen. And it seems like
You
some of
think it
these
would
like
be-
dimensional events are picking up a little bit, and they're kind of like, ooh, this is not great. So but I'm not sure if that's going to go anywhere, or if, like I
Yeah.
said, that's supposed to be more of a like force of nature thing that's happening and supposed to be like almost
right.
an allusion to like climate change.
Yeah.
As like, these conditions are kind of like changing. But obviously like there's no like acceleration
But
to it seems. So I
but
think
Dark,
it's
does
just
climate
more
change
supposed to be
really
a
exist?
it's true. I have seen snow still.
The last game that was probably was most prevalent with climate change and protecting the planet was Final Fantasy VII in 1997. When did it come
Yeah,
out?
and nothing's happened since then. There's been zero change whatsoever.
1997, yeah. Yeah. Name one planet
Name one
Terry
climate
change that
event that's
had.
happened since
Yeah.
1997. But yeah, so I think that was really interesting. I think it's been doing a lot more than I initially thought it would. I really thought it was going to be a much more like standard, straightforward series, but I think a lot of the trivia has been fairly interesting, especially like the interactions between, again, like I said, like establishing like how this would kind of like even manage like to work.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's just a lot of interesting stuff. Like Buccio winds up talking to a what do you call it? He goes to like essentially on like a talk show type thing to meet this guy in Tokyo. And the guy turns out to be a like ancient like demon lord who's just kind of hanging out now as like a showrunner slash like producer.
Nice.
And like his basically like, his backstory is like he likes essentially directing and saving yokai, like sort of like
Oh, okay.
making them aware of like where they stand and like what they can sort of accomplish and like not to like lose themselves essentially now
Right,
that they've
right.
been born.
Mhm.
But on top of that, they talk to a dragon god that comes down at one point and Buccio interacts with it. And the dragon god, which basically tells him like, make sure not to fall into sort of like a demon lord's charisma, because at the end of the day they are still a
Oh,
demon
okay.
lord.
Right,
Like
right.
they could still be like have alternative what would you call it,
Motives.
alternative motives. So I think dropping little things like that is kind of cool, like having these like characters separated, but establishing that these aren't kind of isolated, like they kind of
Right.
all are, the potential for them fighting each other essentially is alluded to, like the demon lord and the
Right.
god. They're like, who knows, like I might need to do something about them at some point.
Hmm.
So I think all of that is pretty interesting, and it's done, I would say, pretty neatly as well. I don't think it does not feel very scattered. I think the way this show is paced is very, very good. And I don't think any part of it feels like boring at all. I don't think any part of it really feels like it's dragging. And I also don't think any part of it is really feeling like it's sort of too episodic or too choppy, or episodes are like split up. They kind of do loop back into each other, and like everything that happens in an episode kind of compounds on itself.
Right.
And then obviously like you have those little through lines. Obviously not something that's like groundbreaking, but I think it's something that's needed to have, a consistent series. And there are definitely some series out there that kind of throw that to the wind. So I think this is balancing pretty much everything really, really well.
That's pretty surprising though, because it's usually with these sorts of series, you have again more of a not saying Yujincho or Majo no Tabi Tabi or Kino no Tabi or whatever these sorts of journey vibes, right? But it's like an everyday. A lot of these are also like short anime series, and it's just going through the town. Oh, today I met the fishmonger, stuff like that. And it kind of keeps it within that realm, and a lot of the times, obviously, why it doesn't do the more deeper world building, or hey, these tengus are falling out of the sky or whatever stuff like that, right? Why it doesn't do that is because it's that's very hard to manage in the story, right?
Yeah,
So
and I mean, for the
there's
record too, like they basically like, they set up a lot of it does have a through line where it's like, you would expect, like you said, there just to be an episode where it's like, oh, this thing fell from like a crack in the sky. But that
yeah.
has sort of been that like sort of weird dimensional instability has kind of been like sort of a background like element that's been spoken about like since the first episode with like the void. So
right,
like
right.
that coming in, and then it's kind of like, okay, this happened in the episode and you already know why. It's the same thing with introducing characters. Like
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
meeting these characters now, and it's not just like, oh, today I'm meeting the car what are those called? Are they called Sukamichis? Sugami cheese? What are they called? The things where it's like the spirit inhabits an object because like someone's loved it for
Tsukumogami?
long enough. So yeah,
it's
Sukagami, right?
yeah.
I think.
Su-
I think it's Sukagami.
Tsukumogami, dude.
Yeah,
Suku.
Sugumogami.
Okay,
Yeah,
Sukagami.
Tsukimokami, yes.
Sukumogami. Okay, whatever. Yeah, so he's a car, but like
What
I'm
kind of
not
car?
gonna like get
Hold on,
into.
what kind of car?
He is a Volkswagen. He's an old or is he an old? I think he's an old Volkswagen. Or hinted at being one, but yeah, he's an old car that was loved for like 40 years.
So
And
he's
then
no
eventually a
Turbotane?
soul inhabited. Eventually, well, yeah. So he turns into that car man that's in this picture and turns back into it. And now there's like it's like a weird like hinted like he calls that other guy his partner. And like they kind of met after that guy lost his wife, and so it's like kind of like this weird like pseudo like gay relationship type thing, but like or like what would you call it? Not or even a like platonic relationship that they're like kind of get into with them as well. But yeah, so like there's a lot of characters here. And I think they're telling a lot of cool stories with them.
Okay.
But I guess
good.
to get to the audio visuals, they are obviously it has that very like almost like kid show designs to it. But I would say its audio visuals are probably a cut above what you're thinking you would see normally. From something like that. They're actually pretty solid, I would say. I'd say they're on the much better side than not.
Okay.
There are a lot of really clean cuts when they need to do like a little fight. There are a lot of really nice there's a nice like flowing to certain, clothing in certain scenes that I won't spoil. Um, and yeah, I think a lot of the effects that they use for the yokai and the yokai like fights and everything have been pretty decent as well. Because obviously, there's always going to be an arc with an evil forest spirit, or a forest spirit cleansing. And so I think the effects that they did with that were really nice. And yeah, so I would say it's like nothing really that I would be like, wow, this is really like jumping out at me. But
Mhm.
I expected something like kind of scuffed. Obviously, like Leiden Films generally does like pretty solid work, if not like great work.
Yeah.
But the art style, makes you think like this is not going to be like have any budget. Like, you would expect like a lot more still frames and everything.
Yeah.
Um,
It would almost evoke again on sort of a short anime rather than a
yeah.
full kind of blown. Everything is properly animated, stuff like that.
Yeah. And so yeah, they do a really great job. As
Okay.
far as the audio goes, there is not really like that standout-ish. I guess with the OST, it's like just really cozy. So it really does its job.
Mhm.
With a lot of that, I would say the kind of coolest thing is, Jiro, one of the mains, he's not a newcomer, but he hasn't really had many roles, at least as far as TV anime goes. And this is kind of like his biggest role now, named Higa Ryusuke Higa. So hopefully we hear more from him because he does a very good transition to a more like serious voice and a much more like between a serious and a very very laid back, like lighthearted voice. So I think he's doing very good work. I don't think any other person, no one else is really like a newcomer in particular. Pretty much everyone else is a quite a lot larger name. Though Mutsumi is also actually, I guess that's kind of interesting. I guess the two newcomers really is Mutsumi, who works with Jiro. That is also Asaki Yukawa, and she has really only started in 2023 with Yushiga Shinda, with all supporting roles. And her main roles are all this year. So I think that's kind of cool. And yeah, I guess the only other thing to really talk about is what would you say? What would you call it? The OP and ED, I guess, would probably be one of the last things. They're fine. They're song wise, they're really cozy. They're very very much like in the line, a line of that. Visually though, they're also pretty standard. Um, So they're nothing really to write home about there. I want to say the OP especially is kind of just like a kind of like going through all the characters and whatnot, like type
Oh,
thing.
okay.
The EDs, the ED is kind of just like a standard like pictures coming by with the song like playing credits of like all the yokai and everything just like kind of hanging out with everyone. Um So either way, they're very much on that sort of standard vibe. I guess the only original thing they do is they are like I think they technically use like different shots at the end each time for the episode itself. So there's like some new stuff every single OP. There's like a little scene that's not like
Oh,
an
okay. So it's like the
animated full
visual
scene.
changes slightly. Okay.
Yeah. They use like a new visual. They're like, all right, here's like almost like a
That's pretty cool,
key,
actually.
but not really. It's kind of just some of them are like, here's instead of using like this collage of pictures, like here's a collage that sort of wraps up this episode, and wraps up everything that's happened here. So,
Yeah.
it's cute, it's cozy, it's nice. But yeah, I don't think there's really much else to say about that. Say about it.
What
Right?
Mal
I think
rating?
I pretty much covered everything. Um, my mall rating would. So if I was like to rate this like it's a mall, like a mall rating, I would probably keep this at what it's at, which is like a 7. I think that's a pretty fair mall rating. If I was gonna give this like a real rating,
Yeah, a real
I'm
rating.
actually rating this 1 to 10, I would probably
Yeah.
this is not how I usually rate stuff anyway. I would probably give it like a 6.5, something like that, like or a 6, because it's like it's good, but it's not something where I'm like, yeah, you like gotta watch this, or like this is something like
Yeah.
this is definitely like if you're like I need to watch stuff from this season, I would say this is definitely like a must watch, obviously, because there's not much going on this season, but if this was in a season of like a lot of solid shows, I would say like, this is something to check out, but not like something you should really like prioritize, But hey, if you
Right.
like world building, if you like more of that sort of thing of, you know, the concept of these things like interacting with each other, then this is definitely something you should check out.
Right.
Because it is a fun what if.
Okay. Pretty good. All right, then. Thank you very much, Dark. Again, pretty pleasant surprise. I thought, again, it had an okay setup, but I didn't know it would be actually, much. I didn't
I was
know
expecting it would be
that,
something much more standard.
or much more shallow, I guess would be the
Yeah,
term
yeah.
for it,
Like
right?
I thought
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
gonna be literally like, here's the yokai in the village. And that's
Yeah,
where this
yeah,
is beginning and
exactly.
ending.
That's what everybody thought. Yeah, yeah, pretty much. So, a very pleasant surprise for sure. Again, it is Tonari no Youkai-san. I think you said it was manga original, or sorry, web manga
This is
original,
this is a
right?
web manga
Uh,
original.
adapted by Lightem Films. Again, I guess there's no localized title for it right now, but transliterated would be The Monster Next Door. So, pretty comfy. Does go into actual, proper like trivia and stuff like that about Japanese yokai and mythos. So, if you do like that sort of stuff, if you alongside the sort of, I guess, deeper interpersonal kind of like drama, romantic relationship kind of vibes, please do check this out.
How's the opening ending?
He
I said it.
went over that.
They're pretty standard, but they're cozy.